So this is my part two of my experience with a warlock. I initially did not disclose all of the information, mainly because I am waiting for a certain period of time to lapse before I divulge everything. Um, and also, I am newer to making videos, so there's bits and pieces that I forget just due to, nerves and anxiousness, things like that. I think that's pretty understandable um, when anybody is starting anything new. But aside from that, I think it's important that we all discuss experiences like this because we are living in a time where society makes it seem like dabbling with this type of stuff is normal and it's acceptable um, without fully disclosing the gravity of what actually playing and manipulating with things like this entails, okay? Any type of manipulation, including witchcraft, lies, deceit, things like that, are not of God, okay? I don't care what anybody says about that. It's not, okay? You could say you're a good witch, whatever you want to do, but at the end of the day, it is still a form of manipulation. It is still deceit. It is still lies. And you are definitely playing with fire, okay? These type of things open doors that sometimes you can't shut. And more often than not, it allows for things to come into your life that can completely derail everything that you're doing, okay? There is, like I've stated before, we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, okay? And there are things on the spiritual realm that can definitely impact your life in a negative way, okay? Demons, things of that nature, most definitely exist. And when you are embarking on manipulating with people, places, and things, and substances, and spells, and spices, and stuff like that, you are opening up portals and giving that stuff authority to enter into your life, okay? I'm not going to try to go too deep on that right now, just to stay focused on the main reason that I'm making this video, okay? But yeah, this is my part two. So I started talking to this guy, like I said beforehand. I met him at a shop that sold some of the supplies for a hobby that I had started. So, talking back and forth, we exchanged phone numbers. When he asked me, he had some puppies at the time, okay? And they were really, really cute little puppies. He was wanting to rehome some of them, okay? So that is how he had initially got my number. And something that always stood out to me, he said, "We have puppies." Okay, there's a plural in there, okay? It's not I, it's a we, okay? So just make a mental note of that, okay? But that is how we exchange numbers. Well, the conversations kind of turn into, oh, I kind of want to get to know you a little bit more. Oh, what if we got some food? Let's go hang out. Let's get to know each other a little bit more, whatever. Okay, it progressed to that point. So I had brought this guy over to my house, and another mental note, the last, I'd say, handful of people, not even a handful of people that I've had brought into my life. Doesn't matter if they were from my past or present. The last few people that I have brought over to my house have definitely crossed me some way, somehow. Okay. But I asked this gentleman if he wanted to come over. He brought some food. We were hanging out at my house, eating dinner, whatever, right? He wasn't over for very long, maybe about an hour or so. But while he was at my house, he asked me if I had a phone charger he could use. Okay, so I let him use a phone charger, didn't think much of it. It started getting late. He had come over after work, so it was already close to 8:30, almost 9, I think, when he had to obviously go home. So, he left and I started tidying up everything. I needed to get my son ready for bed. Well, I couldn't find the phone charger, okay? And I asked my son, I'm like, did he take the phone charger with him? My son said, yeah. And I'm like, that's interesting. Never really had that happen before, but I made a mental note of it, okay? Well, talking a little bit more, a little while longer, I'd say maybe about 6 weeks in, he asked me if I wanted to come over to his house, okay? So I went over to his house. I always have a little bit of underlying anxiety just from being sensitive to energies. And I'm a little cautious about new situations and new environments, okay? But I went over to this guy's house after a doctor's appointment. I only had maybe about a 2-hour window, if that, between the appointment and having to pick my son up from school, okay? So I wasn't over at his house for very long. But, like I said, he had some puppies over there. They were super cute. I guess he got rid of most of them. I think he only had like 2 left, from what my memory says. But after I left his house, as soon as I got to my car, I said, there is something off here. And I said it out loud, right? I just knew. I knew something was off. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I made a mental note of that. Well, obviously talking to somebody for a few months, things progressed into a physical relationship. And the day after we were intimate with each other, I ended up sleeping until about 1:30. It was either 12:30 or 1:30 that afternoon, the next afternoon, okay? It's been a very, very long time since I have slept in that late. When you have small children, you don't really get a lot of sleep, okay? That was actually the first time in years that I was able to sleep in that late. But I made a note of that. My energy kind of felt drained, okay? I wouldn't say drained like to where I needed to sleep some more, but I just felt like something had been taken from me, okay? Okay, so, we're talking for a little bit more. I'm trying to figure out why I had this initial weird feeling from this guy, all right? That's the main reason why I continued to talk to this person. When my instincts alert me to something, I'm going to figure out why I was alerted in the first place, okay? But things progressed, whatever. We started spending a little bit more time with each other. Well, I just turned 41 last week, okay? But he and I were having a conversation just about how, like, gray hair, like getting older, having gray hair, whatever. I am fortunate enough to not have any gray hair, okay? But I would say maybe about a month after we had that conversation, I saw what appeared to be a gray hair kind of grow from right over there, okay? I am not going to pick that out, but I was just like, because my hair is kind of shiny, whatever. I take good care of my hair. I did hair for 15 years. I'm going to take care of my hair. But, I noticed it and I was like, damn, like, is that really a gray hair? Well, I did not pull it out. Those old wives' tales that are like, oh, you pull it out and you get 10 more or whatever, right? Didn't do that. Well, it broke off. Like, I was watching it, right? And it grew out maybe like 1/4 of an inch. And then the gray part of that broke off. And I was like, that is crazy, right? So I didn't think much about that, okay? Mind you, I had only been talking to this guy, I think we only talked for maybe 8-9 months total. But after that little gray hair broke off, maybe about a month later, it came back in the same spot, okay? And I didn't pull it off again. Well, it eventually broke off, and I have not had it reappear. So, I do know, especially like, entertainment industry, a lot of them do like beauty magic, right? So I don't know if that's really what that was. But that is definitely something that I am not going to forget. But I did notice too, like, once you're vibrating really high, there are some people that are able to pick up on that. And actually, there's quite a few people are able to pick up on that too. Like if you're a really high energy, positive person that does have the Holy Spirit, that's going to disturb a lot of people's demons, okay? I mean, it is what it is, right? But there are people that can sense that and get envious and jealous and want what you have. So there are people out here that manipulate things to try to take your essence from you, okay? And I honestly think that's what he was doing. I think he was harnessing some of my energy. And the only way that, like I said in my part 1 video, the only way that they're able to really get energy from, so when somebody's operating on a low level like that, a low vibrational level, witchcraft is a low vibration, okay? When you are operating in something low like that, the person that you're trying to harness the energy from is obviously vibrating a lot higher than you. So for them to gain access to you, they have to do something to make you lower your energy, okay? Lower yourself down, so they can penetrate into whatever they're trying to do, to harness what they're trying to get from you, okay? And the way that he was doing that with me was substances, alcohol, fornication, those 3 things right there. I have said in one of my other videos that I have dabbled. I've always been somebody to dabble, Addiction is definitely something that a lot of people are affected by it. A lot of demons like that can be passed down through bloodlines. But yeah, I've dabbled. I'm not going to sit there and act like I haven't. I said in another video that, alcohol and cigarettes have been definitely something that I've had to pay attention to. But, that is how I was lowering myself. And I noticed the moment that I stopped engaging in all of those activities, I started getting really bad dreams. And I know he was astral projecting into my dreams. But after a certain point, they can't get to you anymore, and it eventually stopped, okay? So I just wanted to mention the rest of that to go along with what I had already discussed, just in case some people are wondering what is going on in their life. Hopefully this shines a little bit of light into a dark corner, okay? But what you need to do, especially nowadays, is try to operate in your higher self. If there are areas in your life that you need to improve on, if there's things that you need to stop doing, you need to stop doing them now. As a collective, we are all running out of time. Things are getting real really, really fast, and you don't want to be caught off guard, okay? But yeah, I will try to upload another video or so, probably later on today. I just have a couple little things I got to do, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that little bit in there. Oh, there was something else too. So when I went over to that guy's house, I noticed just like a urine smell. Okay, yes, granted, he had puppies. Okay, that's why I initially wrote off that smell in the first place. Okay, but the more I started hanging out with him, I would always smell kind of like, I don't know if it was like on the clothes or what, right? I mean, because the dude was really, really clean. His car was immaculate. Everything was just maintenance very well. But there was always this kind of like a sweet burnt smell too associated with him. And he would come over to my house and take a shower like immediately after getting there. And then I noticed sometimes too, like if I was talking to him really late at night, like, you know, between 11:30 and 1, there had been times where he just stopped talking to me. And I thought that was a little odd too. We'd be like right in the middle of a conversation, he would just stop texting me, right? But I've had quite a few other people come over to my house and take showers when they get there or whatever. I don't really care, you know? The water bill is wrapped up in the HOA. Like, I don't really care if you want to take a shower at my house or not, right? So things like that I overlooked or I justified, okay? When something feels off, you need to pay attention to it. But I always smelled that urine smell and like a sweet burnt smell. I think like the only thing that I can think of to describe that smell was like burnt parchment paper. Like if you've ever used parchment paper like an air fryer and it's actually like burnt it on accident, like air fryer sucked it up into the burner or whatever and it burnt the paper, it almost had a smell like that, like a sweet burnt smell. But those are definitely things that I have reflected on and thought about after the fact, okay? But, you know, just, you don't ever know what somebody's doing behind closed doors. If your instinct alerts you to something, you need to listen to it. That is just a general piece of advice to offer to everybody. That is something that honestly scares me about the society that we live in, because a lot of people could avoid a lot of situations if they just paid attention to what their gut instinct is telling them. Okay? But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Yeah, please like and share this video. And let me know if I have said anything that has been of benefit to you. But I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks. Something else that I wanted to add too real quick. Sometimes, depending on the situation, I am able to see the entity that is operating through that person, okay? I've been able to see that for a long time now, probably about 19 years, since 2006, actually, I've been able to see these things, okay? After a certain point, you become desensitized to it. When I first started noticing these things, like it did initially scare me, right? But as time has progressed, I mean, it doesn't even bother me anymore. What bothers me is the amount of people that do have things operating through them. And a lot of the time, these people, they don't know. They do not know. And then if you mention it, sometimes they get offended by it. Denial is not a river in Egypt, okay? But with this particular gentleman, I'm only bringing this up because I had this guy at my house one time, and, you know, we were partying, drinking, whatever, right? And he was in my kitchen. I have a string of lights hanging above the window in my kitchen, okay? But the lights were off, those lights were on, and I saw something that I had not ever seen before work through that guy, okay? If there are different levels of angels, you best believe that there are different levels of entities, okay? But if you've ever seen the movie Legion, like, there's a part in this movie where a police officer has an entity enter into his vessel, okay? And he looks different. His eyes get all black and his teeth look kind of pointy. That is exactly what this dude looked like, okay? I saw it. I acknowledge it. I told God, I see it. I see it, okay? That is the only time that I've actually seen something like that in somebody, okay? I see a lot of like lower level entities, but I've not seen that one before. But I'll do another video on the things that I see too at a later date. But yeah, I just wanted to interject that into this too, because I was driving back home and I remembered that too. So, all right.